Hi, welcome to another video from Counselor Tips. In this video, we are going to be covering the microcounseling skill, self-disclosure. So hang in there as we talk about this effective microcounseling skill and how to effectively use it to facilitate change with clients. There are a lot of counselor educators or supervisors that will discourage counselors or counselors in training from using a self-disclosure because self-disclosure can be misused. But I'm here to tell you, when you use self-disclosure correctly, it is very impactful for clients. So let's cover both the misuse of a self-disclosure and the effective use of a self-disclosure so that you can get this skill down and use this skill correctly to make it impactful. Self-disclosure, when used appropriately, is tremendously impactful. However, you want to use a self-disclosure sparingly. And I use a self-disclosure when the rapport is built well with the client. Now, self-disclosure is used very, very minimally and used when it can provoke insight in a client. So there are 3 stages of change, and that's actually talked about in a different video. But self-disclosure is a more advanced microcounseling skill that is meant to be used to provoke insight and help a client move along to be able to reach the goals and understand the real reasons they've come into counseling and be able to facilitate change so that the clients make the change that they came for and are launched off into their own life and can really handle their own problems on their own. The ineffective way self-disclosure is used is when it takes the focus off the client and the client's session. So it would be when you just share details about your own life or your own experience as a counselor, but it's not directly connected to anything the client has shared, or even if it's directly connected, it just falls flat. So an example would be, well, I've had the same experience as a parent with my child when A, B, and C, and that's it. You deliver the information where you've had a similar experience, but yet it's not necessarily redirected back to the client. So I strongly suggest when you use a self-disclosure that you always use a redirect. So here's an example. I had an experience with my son when he was 5 years old that was very similar. He did A, B, and C. What worked for me is when I was able to use correction, talk about it with him repeatedly, put him in a corner, and so on and so on. Then, to redirect back to the client, you would follow up with, from what I shared with you, what can you take away that can possibly help you be able to solve the same concern with your son? That way the client can connect to the information that you've shared and determine if anything you've shared can help them resolve a concern they've had. Or they gain a new tool and can put it into practice. For example, if my spouse and I use a tool that has worked really well in the marriage, I like to be able to share that with a client in a way that I am sharing how the tool works, right? Not necessarily the result that happened between my spouse and I, but how we effectively use the tool and the outcomes that could occur, right? Facilitate clearer communication, practicing a paraphrase, it clears up any kind of misunderstandings or so on. And so after I make a self-disclosure, I'll say, from what I've shared, what do you think would work for you and your spouse? So that is an effective self-disclosure. Now remember, you want to use it sparingly and always use a redirect. Don't be afraid to use self-disclosure, but remember, when you're using it, you use it sparingly. It is a teaching opportunity, and you're always redirecting back to the client. If you want to know more about self-disclosure or other microcounseling skills, please consider looking at a book that I authored called Skills Made Simple, Microcounseling Skills for Counselors. It is through Kindle, and along with the book are videos for each chapter. There are 13 chapters in the book, and there are videos that match. and it shows the skills being used in context, meaning the client and counselor are talking, and out of context, which is the targeted, focused look at the skill. The book is a much smaller book than traditional microcounseling skills books, but it's very targeted and magnifies the skills, and the focus is on the skill and how to use it effectively. Thanks for watching this video. If you feel like you've learning from my videos, please consider subscribing to the channel and turn on the bell to be notified when I have a new video. If you feel like you've learned from this video, please consider giving it a thumbs up. That way we can reach more people. I'll see you in the next video.